Welcome to Classic Christmas Stories, where holidays live in every word. I'm Jason Hovde, and today we open the pages of A Gentle Treasure. Step back in time to a snowy Christmas Eve filled with childhood wonder, family secrets, and the sweetest kind of confession. Perfect for listeners of all ages. So dim the lights, wrap up warm, and let's begin. Don't forget to check our merch store for holiday gifts, support us on Buy Me a Coffee, and subscribe to Chamber of Classics for more timeless. Phila McCleek lay wrapped softly in snow. The trees arching the wide streets swayed in the stinging winter wind and silently dropped their white plumes upon the head of the occasional pedestrian. Over the old town peace brooded. The snow deadened the passing footstep. The runners of the rude sleds, the hoofs of the farm horses, made no sound. Sleepy quiet prevailed, but for a rare jingle of sleigh bells or the happy calling of children's voices. The rollicking morning sun, having set the town aglitter without adding a hint of warmth, smiled broadly as he peeped into the snowy curtained window of a little red brick house on the north side of High Street. Here in the quaint, low sitting room he found good cheer aplenty. The red geraniums on the windowsill, the worn but comfortable furniture, the crackling wood fire upon the hearth, the dozing cat upon the hearth rug, even the creaking of the rocking chairs, whispered of warmth and rest and homeliness. "So I just run over to tell you, seeing the snow was too deep for you to get out to prayer meeting," wheezed Mrs. Keel, blinking at the sun and creaking heavily back and forth in the old rush-bottomed rocker. "Says I to Joel at breakfast, Granny Simmers will be pleased as punch, for she always did love a frolic. So I'll just run over and tell her while Melly is washing the dishes and I'm waiting for the bread to rise." "It was real kind of you, sister." Folded as she sat excitedly poised like a little gray bird on the edge of her chair. "Just to think of us Methodists having a Christmas tree after all these years. My, how I wish it had come in John's time. I remember once, when we was living out on the farm, says he to me, 'Polly, if the preacher says we'll have a tree this year, you and me'll hitch up Dolly and go to town and buy a gift for every man, woman, and child.' Dolly was our bay buggy beast, and the best mare in the neighborhood. So John was as choice of her as he was of me most, and that was a deal for him to offer." "La, Granny, how well I remember him and you riding so happy in that little green wicker sleigh," exclaimed Mrs. Keel, as she ponderously drew herself from the deeps of her chair. "I must be going now. It was awful nice of Brother Sutton to decide for the Christmas tree when he found the infant class was aching for it. His face was beaming last night like a seraphim. The children are about wild. Emmy says she wants a pony. Guess we'll have some trouble hanging that on the tree. Mart wants a gold watch and chain. And Billy says marbles and a..." "Joel said this morning he's afraid there'll be lots of aching hearts. There is them little cotties. Who's a going to give to them, and the Jacksons, and old Miss Nellie, and Widow Theet? I don't see how the Millers can do much for Tessie, and poor old Sister Biddle. It'll be awfully sweet to hear Brother Nisley reading out. Miss Sally Biddle seems most as if I couldn't stand it. It'll be so sweet. I ain't had a Christmas gift since Biddle was courting me 60 years ago. The poor old body was just chuckling over it. But who's going to give her anything, I'd like to know." "Oh, my me," sighed Granny, clasping her little wrinkled hands wistfully as she stood at the open door. "I ain't thought of the gifts. It was the lights and the candles a-twinkling and the music and the children most busting with gladness and wishes. Land, when I was a little girl, how I used to wish we was Moravians. They or Easterns, and us Methodists didn't have no excitement except revivals. "La me, what am I saying?" she broke off with a chuckle. "As if I didn't thank the Lord every night for making me a Methodist bred, a Methodist born, a Methodist till I die. It's the children I'm thinking about." Mrs. Keel laughed and held up a fat reproving finger as she called from the gate. "I guess you ain't growed up yourself, Granny, for all your 80 years. I've said to Joel often, says I, there ain't a child in this town that is younger at heart than Granny Simmers, and says he, ne'er a child that's sweeter ner prettier." "My me," whispered Granny as she closed the door, her soft wrinkled cheeks delicately flushed at the unexpected compliment. "Joel said I'd never get over being a girl, and here I am blushing like a fool 'cause old Joel Keel says I ain't bad looking." There was much bustling going on in the trim little brick that morning. Martha Morris, Granny's help, had never known her mistress to be so concerned about the crispness of the pepper cakes, the spiciness of the pig and horse ginger cookies, the brownness of the twisted doughnuts, or the flakiness of the mince pies that were resting by noon in savory richness on the pantry shelf. Then, when dinner was over and the dishes washed, Granny demanded that she herself be taken in hand. "Law, Granny, you ain't going uptown in such a snow as this," protested Martha, as she lovingly tucked the thin white hair under the velvet cap and folded the kerchief about her neck. "Indeed I am, Marthy," replied Granny with prompt decision. "The sun is shining grand, and Billy Sharp went along with the snow shovel while you was washing the dishes. Just wrap me up warm, and I'll get along first rate." "Better let me go, too," argued Martha, as she pinned Granny's Bay State firmly under her chin with the big glass brooch with its precious lock of gray hair safely enclosed, and tied up her nubia over her cap. "You might slip and fall. I won't feel safe 1 minute till you are back home." "Land, Marthy, every born soul knows me. Ain't I Granny to the whole town, for all I ain't got a chick ner a child? My me, it's 60 years since John and me laid Rastus away, 50 since little Mary, her father's darlin', slipped off to heaven. Seems like my old heart goes out in love to everybody, count of them 3, John and my 2 babies, waitin' for me in one of the father's mansions. Hope there's a chimney corner. John always loved it so on a winter's night, and I hope there's roses growin' by the doorstep, so it will seem like home to 'em all. And Marthy, if I fall there ain't a soul but wouldn't be ready to pick me up, and a smile for me, bless 'em. I just wonder sometimes how it comes everybody is so kind and good. It's a lovely world, that's what it is." "Now," said Granny to herself, as she teetered along on the icy walk toward the busy stores, "John said a gift for every man, woman, and child. Guess I can remember the whole lot, as there's only 6 men, and I've got the women writ down. And for the children, well, I'll buy till my money gives out, and I reckon I'll get enough. Kind of pitiful about Sister Biddle. My, what a dashin', lovely girl she was when I first see her at the Beals apple parin'. She was Sally Neely then, pretty as a picture, hair and eyes like jet, and cheeks pink as roses, and so tall and slender. I recollect how she picked me up and whirled me round. She was as light as a feather on her feet, and said, 'Polly Whitehead, was there ever such a morsel of a girl as you are? If I was a man, I'd marry you for a night.' And John said he said to himself, she'd have had a hard time of it, for he made up his mind then and there to have me himself. Yes, I'll get Sally Neely a red plush album and put John's picture in it. She'd admire to get that." Granny hesitated. "Well, did you ever?" she gasped. "I ain't never thought of it before. Who will give anything to me, Polly Simmers? John would, dear John, but he's gone, and I ain't got a blood akin in the town, and they've all got such a lot to give to. Maybe I wouldn't mind much, but it would be kind of mortifying to be the only one forgot, for I'm bound they shan't be another soul left out. I wonder if I dare." Long shafts of light from the bare, uncurtained windows of the old church lay across the snow, as the cracked bell jangled through the crisp air its Christmas greeting. The jingle of sleigh bells, the creaking of the runners, merry voices, bits of song, happy laughter, united in a Christmas carol redolent with Christmas spirit, peace on earth, goodwill to men. Granny, leaning on Martha's strong arm, fairly shivered with excitement and delight. She knew that not a soul called by the clamor of that bell had been forgotten. There had been no need of stinting, for Granny's acres were broad and fruitful, and her wants few. Gift after gift had her withered hands tied into pretty parcels. The pen had creaked and sputtered across the paper as she marked them, for she had refused all help from curious but loving Martha, only asking that there be a good fire made in the airtight stove in the spare chamber. There she worked alone but happy, Martha well knew, as she stood with her ear pressed to the crack of the door, having found the keyhole stopped with cotton. While shepherds watched their flocks by night, all seated on the ground, the angels of the Lord came down, and glory shone around, quavered the old voice. And Martha never knew it was not Granny Simmers who sang so joyfully within, but pretty Polly Whitehead in the choir of the old meeting-house, looking on the same hymn book with handsome young John Simmers, the catch of the valley. Just fairly takes my breath away, wheezed Mrs. Keel, meeting Granny on the door of the church. Don't seem like the same place. Now ain't it pretty? Granny caught her breath. Could this be the little church she knew so well? Before that altar she, a bride, had stood with John. There they had carried baby Rastus and Mary for baptism. There the casket had rested that awful day when she had found herself alone. A crude little sanctuary, always bare and cheerless to the beauty-loving eye, yet rich with tenderest memories to Granny. Tonight, ablaze with lights, roped with greenery, bright with flags, joyful to the hum of merry voices, it seemed some new and unexplored fairyland. And there upon the rostrum, in all its glory, tall, straight, and beautiful, twinkling with candles, festooned with strings of popcorn and cranberries, glittering with tinsel stars and silver crowns, adorned with bobbinet stockings, cubby and nubby with candy and nuts, hung with packages big and little, stood the tree. The tree. Let me set down till I get my breath, Marthy, cackled Granny excitedly. Just get my specs out of my pocket, will you, child? My, if only John and Rastus and little Mary was here now. Sitting straight in the corner of her pew, her spectacles on the extreme end of her nose, her bonnet tipped rakishly to one side in her joy, her black woolen-mittened hands crossed demurely on her lap, she, the happiest child of them all, listened to the exercise. Carolers and speechmakers found naught but sympathy in her sweet face. When the last speaker had tiptoed to his seat, and the infant class was growing unruly in the Amen corner, the sight of the bobbinet stockings and mysterious packages being too much for the patience of their baby souls, Brother Nisley carefully mounted the stepladder, and the distribution of the gifts began. Billy Keel, Tessie Miller, Dora Jackson, Mrs. Sally Biddle, haltingly read the brother. The sight of Sally's wild delight over the red plush album almost moved Granny to tears. Mrs. Polly Simmers, Martha Morris, Mrs. Polly Simmers, Mrs. Joel Keel, Mrs. Polly Simmers. Then again and again, until the pew in which Granny sat was filled and overflowed into her lap. Wide-eyed, at first happy, then more and more distressed grew the small face under its rakish bonnet. Mrs. Polly Simmers, Miss Nellie Sanford, Mrs. Polly Simmers. Oh, would they never cease? Martha, chuckling with joy, gathered them in one by one. There, Granny, guess it ain't hard to see who is the favorite in this town, she whispered vehemently. Law's sakes, if here ain't another, that makes 21. Wonder what it is. It feels for all the world like a milk strainer, but I never heard of such a thing hung on a tree. Granny's face flushed, puckered, and flamed into crimson. Don't talk so loud, Marthy. Ain't you got no manners? Oh, whatever ever shall I do? Do? Wheezed Mrs. Keel, leaning over the back of her pew. Do? Why, take every one of 'em and enjoy 'em. Ain't one but what's filled with love, even if it is a milk strainer, though I can't see why anybody came to think of that. Goodness knows we needed it bad enough, returned Martha shrilly, over Mrs. Keel's shoulder. I've been jaw-smithing about it for a last month, but she was always forgetting it. Looks to me as if that was a coal hod, remarked Billy Keel, prodding a bulky bundle on Granny's lap with a fat forefinger. "You hush up, Billy Keel," exclaimed Granny resentfully. "I ain't making any remark about your gifts, be I?" Billy, as much astonished as if one of his pet doves had pecked him, hung his head in shame. "Mrs. Polly Simmers," announced the brother pompously as he slowly clambered to the floor. "That is the last gift." "Ahem," began Brother Sutton, his mild old eyes beaming with joy as he looked over his congregation. He drew his tall length to its uttermost, set the tips of his fingers together, and teetered slowly back and forth from toe to heel. "Ahem. It has been gratifying indeed to see so much generosity, but most of all it has pleased us to see that the receiver of the lion's share has been our aged sister, Mrs. Polly Simmers. It is delightful that her unselfish life, her high sense of honor, her sweet sympathy has been appreciated." Granny, her face deathly pale, every hint of the Christmas joy of the early evening gone from her eyes, now dulled with agony, arose trembling in her pew. But Brother Sutton's eyes brightened as he saw her. "Our aged sister wishes to speak to us, I see," he said kindly, "and I know all the little folks will be very quiet." "I just want to say," gasped Granny, clutching nervously at the pew in front of her, "I just want to say that I'm a wicked old sinner, that I'm a liar and a cheat and a disgrace to my church." The audience, as if electrified, turned toward her in amazement, even the children dropping their gifts to stare at Granny as she stood pale, wild-eyed, and self-accusing. "My heart's most bustin' with your goodness," went on the quavering old voice, "and I've got to tell or I'll die 'fore mornin', and I can't go to John and Rastus and little Mary with a lie on my soul, even if the good Lord would forgive me for their sakes and let me in. That day I set out to buy a gift for every man, woman, and child in the church, the devil kept telling me there wouldn't be nothing for old Granny Simmers. And the more I thought, the more I got a hankering to hear my name read with the rest. And the bad man, he said to me, says he, 'Granny Simmers, why don't you go buy some things for yourself and put them on the tree? Nobody'd be the wiser. Needn't buy anything extravagant,' says he, 'just plain necessities that Mary's been urging. Since you are buying for everybody in the church, there's no harm. John said every man, woman, and child.' I didn't have an idea that anybody would think of old me, so I says to the bad man at last, says I, 'Just a few things, devil, just a few. A milk strainer that Marthy had been jawing about, a coal hod, a tack hammer, and a new calico I had been needing for some time. Then I got a couple of new pie tins and a soapstone, 'cause Martha cracked the old one, and I never once thought of it being a sin, and I tied 'em up with ribbons and tissue paper and sung as I did it. I was just as happy as a child. But when I saw how you'd all remembered me, and heard Brother Nizzy readin' gift after gift, and I seed how I doubted your friendship and knowed you never dreamed I was actin' a lie, I just felt so pussly mean I couldn't stand that you should believe all them gifts came from love. I guess I ain't fit for anything but churchin'." Shaking with sobs, the little woman dropped back in her seat to be received into Martha's loving arms. "Brother Sutton," it was Mrs. Keel's asthmatic wheeze that broke the silence. "Brother Sutton, I've got a few words to say, and as I look about at the streamin' eyes of this congregation, I know you'll all agree with me. If there is a dear saint on earth who has stood by us in our sorrows and our joys, who's hovered over our deathbeds and welcomed our babies, it's Granny Simmers. If there's a soul of honor, a childlike conscience, and one of the Lord's own, it is this blessed little woman. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but my heart's most broke for the poor little soul. Ain't no more sin in her gentle little heart than there is in a baby's." "Amen," came from every side. But Brother Sutton, his face beaming with tenderness, had come swiftly down the aisle and was bending over Granny. "Sister," he said, taking her little wrinkled hands in his, "believe me, God forgave you this before you asked it. And as for us, look about you, and what do you see in the faces of your friends? Come one and all, and give her your tenderest greetings." Kneeling by the bed that night, in her little white gown and cap, as she pressed her face in the pillow where John's head had rested for so many years, Granny poured out a humble and contrite heart. "And Lord," she added, Please tell John and the children that I give every one of them things to Miss Cotty, and I'm starting out again with faltering steps toward the heavenly home." That was A Christmas Confession. I hope it wrapped your heart in the gentlest holiday glow. If it touched you, please leave a quick review on your favorite podcast platform. Every star helps new families find these stories. We'll have another festive classic for you tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, visit our merch store for holiday goodies, support the show on Buy Me a Coffee, and subscribe to Chamber of Classics for mysteries and more. All links in the show notes. Until tomorrow, Merry Christmas storytelling.